Hello everybody, John here, and today onto the garage it's a farewell to another member of the fleet. Yogi, our 2017 Jeep Cherokee, is moving on to make way for another interesting vehicle. So Yogi is a 2017 Jeep Cherokee, not to be confused with the larger Grand Cherokee. And the model in question is a limited 2.2, and she is fully loaded. When this car was first brought out, it caused quite a lot of controversy for its unusual styling. Some would say un-Jeep-like, and it really did split opinion with its cutting edge, more futuristic look, and this bent grille is probably the prime reason for that, followed closely by these are the headlights, not these. So it had split opinion before it even started. Of interest to me as a Brit is that this is, or was at least at the time of purchase, the most American car you could buy from a mainstream manufacturer. What do I mean by that? This is not something that's based on a Fiat or another Chrysler. It's a wholly Jeep design. It's not manufactured in Mexico or Brazil or anywhere else in the world. This came from the Jeep factory in America. And the vast majority of its componentry is of Jeep derivation and sourced where possible from the States. And it's rather a sad statement really, but you will struggle to find another car that's as American as this without going to niche manufacturers. So we've owned Yogi for over 2 years and done a lot of miles in her. So what's the experience been like? What do we like? What don't we like? What's our recommendations or otherwise about the Jeep Cherokee? So our model, as I said, is a limited, which is the top of the range. And with top of the range comes some pretty nice trim. We have leather seats with embossed Jeep logos and perforated panels. Very, very comfortable. Great long distance seats. With very decent side support, which is not always the case in, let's call it, soft roaders. The dashboard is very well laid out. I don't have any ergonomic issues with it. The top of the dash is in a suitably soft material, and it has this contrast stitching which at least gives the impression of leather. Our particular model has these sort of faux Zebrano panels on the doors. With a very decent audio system. And one of the major reasons for picking the limited model was a huge glass roof that retracts. Something that you don't always get. You often get a panoramic roof or moon roof that's a glass panel. Sometimes they'll pop up at the back. But a very large roof that also slides back, quite an unusual feature. We've found the main screen pretty easy to use. The navigation system is actually very simple and we've enjoyed that, and it compares well with Jaguar's systems. The U apps button allows you to add additional features to the main screen for easy access, and there are many of them because this car is loaded, such as heated and ventilated seats, and you can add those as part of the main screen if you wish. Like most but not all products with the Jeep name on, this is a genuine off-roader, enjoying a selection of modes from the select terrain control, auto, snow, sport, sand, mud, and we have an automatic gearbox with a sort of semi-manual sequential mode for it. And when we've had need to use the four-wheel drive, it's been superb. We have SD card inputs, which I must admit are really old hat these days, but it is there. USB, and that allows you to link into the head unit. Auxiliary in, obviously the old cigarette lighter, which most people are going to use as a 12-volt outlet. And in the center armrest, we also have another USB in and a 12-volt outlet in there as well. This car has self-parking and can steer itself into parallel and 90-degree parking spaces. Lane departure system, radar controlled, cruise control, you name it. Storage inside is pretty good. Lots of smaller cubbies, place to stash things, cup holders, a very decent sized glove box, and door bins which can hold decent sized bottles. The centre armrest is particularly capacious. Steering wheel houses controls for all the usual suspects in terms of the sound system, the ability to make phone calls or make speech commands. It has the controls for the radar controlled cruise control and speed limiting. And we also have anti-collision emergency braking systems. Plenty of space in the back for 5 adults. The centre is a little firm, it has to be said, because of the drop down armrest not being a true seat, but it's a nice feature to have and includes cup holders when it's down. Down here there is actually a 240 volt outlet because the car has an onboard inverter and that can put out 150 watts. So okay for charging your accessories. Rear parking camera, electrically operated tailgate, and a very decent sized boot with a stowage blind and lots of curry hooks and places to stash and stow things. Below a heavily rubberized mat which can turn over to keep your interior clean is an enormous space that you could put a spare wheel in, but on our car has a compressor and foam. The seats do a 60-40 fold and can fold down completely flat, and it makes a very decent van. So what have been the highlights of ownership of the Jeep Cherokee? I would say that number one is actually the punchy 2.2 diesel engine. It's surprisingly quick and mated to a really good automatic gearbox. Makes really good quick progress, particularly when you put it in sport mode on the four-wheel drive system, which gives a minor bias towards the rear wheels and gives it rather more of a big hot hatch feel when zipping around. Next, what I would say is the very European ride comfort. The seats are brilliant and the ride is probably the firmest of the non-agricultural 4x4s that I've driven. Roll is really well controlled and it's very heavily damped and it gives rather a sporting feel, which is great for working around the lanes in the UK. This might not go down well in some other areas of the world where I'm imagining that suspension is going to be retuned to give a more floaty, sort of traditional 4x4 feel. But it does do a really good job for what we want. Another highlight for me has been the boot, and that's because of how just well thought out and useful it is. You've got these extra little hooks here and there. You've got lashing rings which are easy to access when you want to tie something down. You do have the flip over mat. The rear blind detaches, and because it's a roller blind, it's pretty easy to store. We have all the accessories, as all Jeep fans would have, including shopping bags. But this is actually really handy. It feels like a novelty, but this holdback system basically has little Jeep logoed hooks which can be moved, removed, slid around on this rail system. You can store things behind it vertically, and there is a very deep well just behind there, and I need to store tall bottle or things diagonally. And you can even open it like a gate, or pull back and remove it entirely if you just want the extra space. And this is an alloy frame, it's not plastic. Reveals another 12-volt socket below there. And although the boot floor is necessarily high, I say necessarily, the nature of the vehicle, four-wheel drive, etc., it's completely flat, and there's no painted surfaces here to scuff if you do struggle to get things in and out. And I've got to say that the looks are another one of my highlights. They're certainly not to everybody's tastes, but it does pull off a unique look that is neither too industrial and off-road looking, whilst not looking soft. The front end is challenging, but I think once you get your head round the headlights and the fact that they're low down, it actually starts to look quite handsome. And I think it's probably going to age rather well, and people will start seeking these out more in the second-hand market. But it can't all have been good, and it wasn't. There are things that we do not like about this car. Easily my number one in terms of dislikes is, as a limited, it came equipped with these polished alloy wheels. You'd call them chrome wheels, but it's a polished alloy. And they just do not work in the UK's environment. If you come from a salt-free area of the world, then these are beautiful. But look at the state of these wheels, and anybody who follows the channel regularly will know I look after my cars. So this is blown lacquer over the alloy, and it just can't survive a stone chip and any salt. So they're a major no-no for me. Low down on the car, we have a lot of plastic work, which is a styling thing as well as good common sense on a car that probably is going to see some off-road action. But where that interfaces with things like seals, there's lots of little bits and pieces where you think, they could have done with spending a few more pennies there. So, you know, that's a raw edge of the vehicle. The anti-collision system has some unintended consequences. So we have experimented with this, which is a scary thing to do. And yes, if you're running up towards the rear of a car that's going much slower or is stopped, then the vehicle will give a single beep and then apply the brakes a little, and then it will put the brakes on hard. And it's an excellent system and well done. However, when you're parking the car, if you're reversing into your yard, into your drive, and you're close to any of the walls or a pot plant, then it can snap the brakes on when you're doing 5 miles an hour in a really surprising and scary way, and actually lock the wheels up to the extent that the ABS comes in. So we found that scary and irritating. My father-in-law's driveway is a slope uphill, and if we reverse onto it, the vehicle thinks it's approaching a wall and just brakes, and every time it catches you out and sends the heart rate running. So that's something that we disable or not specify. But I think you can agree that's a pretty cruel list of hates, dislikes about this vehicle. And yeah, there are other minor niggles, but nothing really registers as much as those things with me. Something that might irritate some is this is not a true hydraulic gearbox torque converter style. It's kind of a DSG torque converter hybrid, and that has some great features, one of which is it will slow you very effectively when you're slowing down, uses engine braking. It's great, but it can mean that when you're slowing down, it's a little more jerky than you might anticipate from an automatic, where normally you wouldn't feel the gear changes on the way down. And it can make, in the sort of 1 to 2 gear change, a little bit of a clunky progress because of that. Again, it's not quite as smooth as a full-on torque converter gearbox. What have we added to Yogi over the 2 years? Well, we first added chrome mirror caps, and they were in part to protect the mirrors, which do tend to get stone chipped a lot where we live. And also because you've got a lot of bright work against the black, we thought the chrome would look rather good. And we're a little bit surprised that the limited top of the range model didn't come with that. We added wind deflectors to all 4 windows, and that was because we do like to drive with the windows slightly ajar, and you do get some buffeting, particularly if you're having a front window open and no back windows open. With those on, absolute silence, really good, and we do like the look of it. But beyond that, Yogi has remained standard, which is very good. What about things that have worn out, broken, fallen off? We've replaced the tyres, and I'd estimate that on this vehicle your tyres are going to last you in average use around 25,000 miles, no more than that. I think that's pretty good for a 4-wheel drive vehicle where he's actually driving the wheels rather than some of the soft roaders that give a faint waft of power around the vehicle. I had to have several attempts to stop the brakes from squeaking. Copper slip behind the pads in various places on various occasions, but they're at the moment completely silent, so a minor niggle, and I wouldn't say it's a failure. And I have had to repair the fold back mechanism on this mirror. It got nudged in a car park by a person rather than a vehicle, and although it did what it's supposed to do, broke away from its mount and folded back. It folded back into position and then was floppy or loose, and the fold mechanism never really worked correctly after that. So I had to disassemble the unit and put that back together. It had just got itself out of sync, let's say. Again, I don't think we can blame the vehicle too much for that. And other than that, in 20,000 miles, never put a foot wrong. This vehicle has been excellent. She's never had any bodywork squeaks or rattles. Large sunroofs, particularly those that move, can often make quite a lot of creaking and groaning noises. Not a thing on this. And I'm really impressed with the build quality, I've got to say. So any people out there knocking any American build quality, I've got to say, think again. This is really very good. and I would match up the build quality of this vehicle against that of JLR anytime. Material quality is variable, and some of the interior plastics are certainly lower rent, and some of the minor plastics such as sills and underbonnet plastics are not as good as the more expensive mainstream and European competition. For me, that's the star of the car. 2.2 4-cylinder turbocharged diesel engine. Really does make for effortless driving. It really suits the character of the car. It's it's a really good low down slugger, but can scream along, and mated to that beautiful auto gearbox, I don't think it will ever leave too many people wanting for anything more. If you don't want this, then you need a V8 Jeep. So there we have it, the end of a very pleasant experience owning, driving Yogi Jeep Cherokee for a couple of years. Not moving her on because of we don't like her, moving her on because to make space for something else very interesting that we want to get. So my overall recommendation would be, if you can learn to love the looks, then you should really go seek out a test drive in a Jeep Cherokee, because it is the overlooked Jeep. What surprised me talking with a lot of my subscriber friends in the States is how few are actually familiar with this model. And I think it may be one of those Marmite vehicles that some dealers didn't even bother with, because it just maybe felt a little too European or a little bit not quite Jeep, despite being the real deal. So I think a future classic, I really do. And that sounds a very strange car to say that about, but unique styling, genuinely able to do cross-country stuff, and in Trailhawk style, proper off-roader. Really good express to use for motorway use in the UK and down our winding lanes, and just really nice transport. What a great car. Check them out. Hopefully you're going to subscribe to the channel to see more stuff that's happening onto the garage, and you'll want to know when the next videos are coming out, because soon we'll be revealing what is going to sit in the place where Yogi used to sit, and why is it very interesting. So hope to see you again soon. John out. If you're enjoying our channel, then don't forget to subscribe and click the little bell icon so you get notifications of new videos. And please give us a thumbs up or thumbs down, and you can share the videos. And below the video is always the area where you can comment and get involved with the chat.